So what is Member Insights? What is this process? What are we doing? Why are we here? So many existential questions. And so let us give you just a very brief overview of what this process is and what it's about. So Member Insights is a rapid, inexpensive research methodology that we've developed to help DI and to help CCC better understand CSOs here in Phnom Penh, how they communicate both internally and externally, and how they use technology both for communications and for operations. So it is executed through face-to-face interviews and small-scale focus groups, and those are with the NGO members in their offices, in the places where they work. We want to understand them and understand them in the places that they operate. That's very key to these sorts of design-oriented research processes. And then the first step this is the first step in a broader design process for either CCC, DI, and other support organizations. This is information that should be used as a base for the design of communications and outreach programs to these organizations. It's information that these organizations themselves can use to improve how they do their outreach to their beneficiaries, and hopefully some really cool tools and processes will be the result of all of the data we've collected here. So, and then it's worth mentioning that this is the first iteration of Member Insights. It's based on a methodology that we call Digital Insights, which is something that we've been doing with DAI in a number of different countries, which is primarily beneficiary focused. So it's all about understanding how people in the field in rural areas and urban areas use technology, use cell phones, which apps are they using, which apps are they not using, all with the goal that we can understand them better so that we can design outreach and tools for them. So this is primarily, it's been a beneficiary-focused tool. We're now adapting this for organizations, and that's what's unique and different about this particular process with Member Insights. And it's worth mentioning that Digital Insights came from the Consumer Insights process, which a lot of Silicon Valley tech companies use to do very quick, easy research with their intended beneficiaries or intended users of their products so they can understand how they're communicating and how they use technology, and they build that into their design process. So we've sort of borrowed that methodology and adapted it for the international development space. So, and then this very last point here is extremely important. This is not a scientific methodology. Our goal is not to write a white paper for publishing in the Lancet or any journal. The goal here is to very quickly, very inexpensively, and very easily develop a general picture of how a group communicates and how they use technology. And so, there will be questions about sample size. There will be questions about statistical validity. Our goal, as I said, is that this is a design-oriented research method. So it's quick, it's inexpensive, and it's easy. And frankly, it's more information than we would have had if we had not gone and sat in 20 NGOs offices and asked them, an hour's worth of questions. So as I said, the goal here is quick, rapid insights about how they're communicating, how they're using technology, and that we use that then to design better communications and outreach campaigns, and also improve tools to support them. So. And why are we doing this? What's the point of all this? One of the main reasons we wanted to do this was to help CCC, help them better understand how their member organizations are communicating, help them better understand how their member organizations are using technology, so that we can help them act on the results. And that's going to mean finding ways of helping them change how they communicate, or possibly communicate through different ways, but also thinking of different kinds of training and training programs that they can design based on what their member organizations really need. And the third one, in my opinion, as a development professional, this is maybe the most important one, which is that we want to transfer these kinds of simple, inexpensive, quick research methodologies to CCC through our friend Bonsack, so that they can do them in the future. And a big part of this is sort of the technical information that we get out of it, but another component of it is showing them that we are interested and that we want to know, and that we're willing to go to their offices to understand who they are and how they operate, right? It's also almost an outreach campaign in and of itself. By going to their offices and sitting with them, we're showing them the importance that of what they think and how they operate, and that we want to understand who they are and what they do in their own environment. So that's kind of another important component of this. And it's worth mentioning that Development Innovations ends in August of next year. So as we kind of are, as you are approaching the end of this really awesome project and all this great work you've been doing, we want to be sure that the role that DI has in the NGO community here in Phnom Penh it continues, that other organizations are able to continue the great support that you guys have provided to NGOs around Phnom Penh, and that others are able to sort of replicate some of these processes. So those are some of the reasons why we decided to do this. And then let's see here. There's keep going down here. All right. So we focused on 20 Phnom Penh-based NGOs. That was who we had time to cover in the month that we were here, and they were all CCC member organizations. And we didn't just focus on the organization, because organizations, what is an organization if not people? It's not just a building with computers and processes and some chairs. An organization is the people, and that's why a major focus of our research was understanding the people who work in these organizations and how they communicate, what tools they use, and sort of what their interaction with technology and with information flows are like. That's really key to our research. So, and to talk a bit about our process, I'm going to turn over to Pork. Slides.
Thank you, So now I would like to go through the process of the survey, and this survey we divided into 4 different steps. And the first one, we focus on identification of research objective and specify narrow target population. And from the discussion, we come up with the 3 main objectives for the research. The first one is to understand how the NGO staff members they communicate, how they use the ICT to communicate both with the internally with their colleagues or internally with the beneficiary or stakeholders. And the second objective is we want to understand how the NGO use the ICT tool or software to support the operation inside the organization, and how and what channel they use to communicate with the public. And the last objective is to understand the need of capacity building from the NGO members. So what area or what need for capacity building they will need from, especially from CC, who is the network organization. And then we specify narrow target population. As you know, CC have almost 200 NGO members, and many of them are international NGO and also local NGO. And the local NGO, there are many based in the province and many based in the Phnom Penh city. So because we have only 3 weeks of time for conducting the survey, we targeted only the 20 local NGO that are based in Phnom Penh, so that we can complete the survey on time and we can go more insight on them. And step 2, we design the survey. Our team here he designed the planning and drafting the questionnaire from the and then he sent the questionnaire to us for providing feedback. As you know, Adapt is the digital insight expert, and he have a lot of experience, and he can draft a very good, very comprehensive questionnaire. But he need to send it to us for providing some feedback, because he never to Cambodia, so sometimes it can be hard for him to understand all the context, especially on the popular mobile application that are using in Cambodia. So it can be something different from other country. And then when he come here, we work together with the CC team and DI team to finalize the question, and then we conduct the piloting. We pilot the questionnaire with the few team members here to understand the flow, to understand how the respondent may respond to each of the question we interview and what the flow. And then we refine the questionnaire and we reorder the questionnaire again to make that the flow of the interview run smoothly.
One thing to add about survey design, we started with a product or a tool that was very similar to what we've used for digital insights out in the field and other places. And the final product we've ended up with is completely different. And that's exactly what we want. We don't want something that's the same, or we want something that's really customized, not just country by country, but for the specific purpose. And so, we started with one thing, and we've ended up with a tool that's totally customized, and I think it ended up being quite
yeah, it ended up being quite a strong tool for what we needed. So what you'll see when we get the results.
Yeah. And step 3, we execute the survey. We went to 20 different NGO offices and to meet with the staff member between 1 to 4 members for each organization, and we come up with a total of 48 staff that we interview. And then we go during the interview, we go through all the questionnaire, and our questionnaire was divided into different parts. And the first one we focus on individual, and the second one we focus on organization. And for the individual, for example, if we interview with 3 different staff members of that organization, we need to ask every single question to all the 3% together, and those 3% need to respond to all the questions one by one. And then for the second part, we focus on organizational level, and so they can respond to us with the consensus answer. So, and for the organization, we focus on the mission of the organization, how they operate, or what kind of technology they use to operate or to support the operation in the organization, and how they communicate with the public, with the beneficiary or the public. And for the individual level, we focus on what kind of mobile application the staff are currently using, and how they communicate internally and or externally with other key stakeholders. And the last step, we analyze the data. After we complete the interview, we digitize the data into Google form. And you know the reason why we do not use tablet or computer to do the digital data entry during the interview. There are 2 reasons that we did not do that. The first one will be we want to avoid the interruption between the interviewer and the interviewee. As you know, if we use the tablet in the middle and then I'm asking and she's talking and then I'm typing on the tablet, so it's mean the flow of our conversation is not so natural. And then also because the questionnaire consisting of a lot of qualitative questionnaire, and it requires us to type a lot of information in, so it may be hard for us to do it on time, but when the interview speak a lot or provide a lot of answer. And then we analyze the data after we complete the data entry form, and then we analyze the data to Excel spreadsheet, and we also use some online tool to support all the data analysis, such as TechCrowd or some other online tool. And then we identify key insights. So I would like to give the floor to Adam to give more detail on what insight we found from the survey.
Actually, Corp, I think I'm going to leave the floor to you for the first part.
Okay, sorry. I have one more part to present more, and here I just would like to show some result, demographic result from the interviewing. And as Adam mentioned at the moment, we interviewed 20 organizations that are based in Phnom Penh and all are CC members, and we found that each organization have different staffing. And you can see one organization has a smallest size with less than 10 staff members, and one organization has up to more than 70 staff. So even though they are local NGO and are based in Phnom Penh, but the number of staffing can be significantly different depending on the project or the program that they are implemented. And here you can see the average size of the staff member. They have 25 full-time staff. And this is what we want to show what those NGOs are focusing on. We refer to the beneficiary. Here we found that all the NGOs, they are focused on helping diverse marginalized population, but those population can be different can be same or different. Sometimes it can be similar. But the majority of those marginalized population are community people, poor people, youth, children, and disabled people, as you can see here.
With the link in if you want to do it.
And this is the link that we do the analysis based on. We do this analysis based on the link here. You can see what
JasonDavies.com.
Yeah.
But if you Google word cloud, there's 10, 15 different ones. This one looks quite nice, so that's what we used to.
This show that this show people that we interview. As you can see here, we interview different level of staff members from staff, program staff, and finance staff to the leadership level. But the most majority of staff that we interview are working on program, and then after that, those working on the leadership level can be executive director, deputy executive director. And we also interview with 9 admin and finance staff, and we also interview with IT, communication, and economical aspect. And related to the numbers, to the number of years spent with the current organization, on average each person has spent on average 4.5 years with the current organization. And in terms of age, we found that the youngest age is 27 and the oldest age is 56, so the average 36 years. And majority of the interviewee are males, 30%. And here was the result of numbers inside, so I would like to give the floor to Madam to elaborate more on the insights. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. This was at Savan Puam, am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, this was good. He was quite an exciting director to interview, I have to say. But we'll come back to that later. So we want to start by talking about some of the things that we found about internal communication. And I think, by the way, Pork, if you look here, you can see what will show up, so that's how you know this is active and that's what's coming up. So click one more time that. And just as a preface to all of our results, you might look at this and say, duh, I mean, I knew that everyone is using Facebook Messenger. The reason this is interesting, or the reason this is maybe different, is because we are talking to these organizations and understanding how they operate, not just, are you using Facebook? We know that almost everyone's using Facebook. I mean, now we definitely know that, based on the research that we've done. So I think what our point here is that we've gone and we've talked to these people in the places where they operate, and we've asked them sort of what are the ways that your organization communicates, not just as individuals, but as an organization. And that's what's maybe unique and what's maybe different, and what hopefully we'll find to be useful for CCC, for DI, and for other organizations in the space. So one more time then. And so this we found quite surprising. We asked them, do you use a chat app? Do you have some sort of internal team active chat going at any given time? And 85% of them said that they do have some kind of active chat going. Some of them mentioned multiple tools that they use, but 16 of them, or 80%, said that they use Facebook Messenger, and 3 of them said that they use Skype. Yeah, I was just surprised. I mean, that there were so many groups that not just individually or one-to-one that were using Facebook Messenger, but as group communication tools. That Facebook Messenger was a productivity tool for their organization. And one quick point. The numbers here might look a little confusing. Say 85% of organizations say they have an active chat group, and then you look at this and say, okay, Facebook Messenger at 16 plus 3 is 19, so wouldn't that be 95? And it wasn't just what's the one tool that you use, it's what are all the tools that you use. So we had 3 organizations that said that they don't have an active chat going. And then among the 17 that did have an active chat going, 16 of them said Facebook Messenger, and 2 of them that mentioned Facebook Messenger also mentioned Skype. So they were supposed to get multiple answers, I guess is sort of the point there. So, all right, next slide.
Other points on internal communication. One more time, I think. So, one of the things that we asked them was, if you're going to have a meeting next week and you want everyone in your organization to know about it and to be there, what is the way that you tell people? How do you let everyone know? And in our minds, that was a proxy or a way to ask about what are the formal communication channels that your organization uses. And so, 18 out of the 20, or 90% said that they use email. So maybe that's not surprising, but it does confirm what we might have expected. All that being said, having now been to their offices and having seen how, particularly some of the very small NGOs with 5, 6, 7 people operate, I was surprised to learn that many of even the small ones are using email as a sort of group communication tool, whereas if they're all sitting in the same room, they can kind of just yell at each other and say, hey, we're meeting with someone tomorrow. And it sounds like, many of them also use phone calls. So email and phone calls are sort of the most common formal communication and planning tools these organizations use. And you can see Facebook Messenger also making the list. 3 of them are on Google Calendar, and then 3 of them also just said, yeah, we sit together, so we just tell each other. I think that's all that's on this one, right?
Can we ask questions during?
I guess, what do you think with time-wise? I mean, I think we're doing okay on time, so yeah, you can.
Can you go back to that last slide? So, the Facebook Messenger here that they would be using is me sending a Facebook message out to the whole team to say, hey, we have a staff meeting on Friday.
Assumedly, yeah. We didn't specifically ask in the context of formal communication how are you using Facebook Messenger, but it would make sense that if 16 of them have active Facebook channels, then the 4 who say that they're using it as a coordinating tool, that's probably happening through a group chat. And you could make that assumption.
Okay.
So one of the things that we asked them was, what are your perceptions of your beneficiaries, the people that you help and that you work with? So point being, this is not scientific data, this is not face-to-face data, but our expectation is that the people who run these organizations are going to have a better idea of how their beneficiaries are operating than we will. So we wanted to compare this to the phone internet survey that was done last year by DI, by Asia Foundation, and Open Institute all together. Did I miss anyone there? Those are the main 3?
You are right.
Sorry.
You are right.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure I get that right for later, especially. And so just to point out before we get into the results, there's some significant differences here that matter. And one of them is that the data source is quite different, right? I mean, I believe their data was collected on the ground, face-to-face. They did a few thousand interviews all over the country in different areas. Ours are based on perceptions of the folks who work in those areas. So a little bit of a different data source. Don't go yet more. And also worth noting that the target population is quite different. They're asking about all Cambodian people all over the country, rich, middle class, poor, everyone. The populations that we're focusing on here are very much the marginalized populations and the folks that these NGOs support. And also data collected, this is 2017, so you're maybe a year to a year and a half after some of the data was collected for the report. So maybe some minor differences there. Now, as far as what we found, this is an average across everyone that we asked. So we asked them, how many beneficiaries do you support? And what percent of them do you believe have a cell phone? And so we averaged the total number. It was a weighted average. So this is not just for each organization what the average of one organization. It's not that we have one organization with 20,000 and one organization with 10 people, and we average those numbers. We took the total number of beneficiaries and we divided it by the average percent expected that had cell phones, which is what the methodology is. So the average expected for mobile phones was 81%. But they believe that 81% of the people that they support have mobile phones of some kind, and that they believe that 57% on average have smartphones. And then let's compare that to the phone and internet survey.
They don't display on this.
Oh, it's not switching? Yeah, that's good to know.
But for compared to the phone and internet survey, found that 96% of the Cambodian population they own phone and 48% own smartphone. So a little bit different from our number in science.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. We'll have to fix that for later. Okay. I don't know why it's not. because we're using this presenter form. Sorry, guys.
We are a flexible and adaptable audience. We understand.
Was, do you have a website? And how often is it updated? And who's sort of in charge of it? We asked the same set of questions about their Facebook page and how they work with that. So all of them have a web page, but there's some interesting points on it. 90% have a Facebook page, and it seems like from what we saw, the Facebook page is much more active and much more consistently updated than the websites are. So just stay here 1 second, or just go back 1 second. So we asked, how often is your website updated? And it sounds like most websites are updated every quarter or rarely. So not really all that commonly.
1 year, 1 time.
Yeah.
I'll try to have a question for everything, but I learned from Jesse. The color, if it's red, it represents something is negative.
Okay. Yeah, we just got all different colors right there. So, okay, and then push to the other one, Facebook page. So you can see these are updated much more common. 9 of them said they update every week. Many of them said they update every single day. Go back to the website for 1 second. You can see that for the website, nobody said they updated every day. So it's just a significant difference. Those who are using Facebook as an outreach tool, they're on that much more commonly. They're really using it for their outreach in a much more consistent manner. And then if we go down to the next slide, you might have to point on that little arrow down there. All right. And we also asked sort of who's in charge of it, who runs the Facebook page, who's managing it. In general, what we noted was that there were lots of different folks who have responsibility for managing the website. You can see it's uniquely the executive directors on the Facebook page, which I was actually quite surprised by. It so well, everyone does the website, but we know that websites almost never get updated. So they have a smaller group that's really in charge of managing the Facebook pages. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting that there were so many executive directors who kind of handle that themselves. I would think that would be more the responsibility of communication staff, someone else. Is there a question? Anyway, so yeah, that surprised me. Go ahead.
Can I just ask, does that surprise you all or not surprise you?
Yeah.
Surprise.
They love Facebook.
Oh, yeah. So he's saying that admin and finance is more than comms.
Yeah, right. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just go back to the arrows real quick.
But that links back to the number of staff in each organization. Mostly there are 20 staff and executive.
Yeah, certainly with the smaller organizations, you're going to see that it's more likely to be the executive director. They probably don't have communication staff for a lot of them. But that's a broader point is, when you're thinking about your organization's sustainability and how you stay afloat, part of that is being able to talk about your successes and talk about what you do with the money that you bring in so that you can get additional grants and keep the money flowing in. So part of that is sort of figuring out how to balance a small organization. And if your executive director is doing all of the comms and outreach, then maybe they aren't doing as many meetings with external groups, or they aren't out there making the case face-to-face with folks saying, hey, we need those grants. So from an organizational perspective, maybe there's something that there's to be learned from this point here. So, and then, only 15% of them mentioned the communication staff that work on their website or their Facebook page. So once again, this is 20 NGOs in Phnom Penh. This is not every NGO in the world, not every NGO in Cambodia. But it was just a surprising fact that so many executive directors are so involved with that themselves. So. We asked them about how they do outreach and how they do fundraising, and if they do outreach and fundraising. So 80% of them said that they do host periodic local events that are for their beneficiaries. We thought that was good. And we did ask them sort of what types of events they do. So 8 of them said they do marches, 5 said they have meetings, 3 have forums, or rather these are sort of the outreach methods. And then these are the 3 that we thought were mediated, right? So we've got green ones, which are face-to-face methods, and the blue ones are mediated. So we've got Facebook, TV, and radio that were all common outreach methods. And then concerts, one organization mentioned that they use concerts, which I thought was pretty cool. And then only 15% 15%, only 3 of them said that they've run any kind of fundraising campaign over the last couple of years, which was really surprising. One of the things that we consistently heard was that funding is an issue. They need more funding. We need more funding for this program or this initiative. But almost nobody is doing local ground level fundraising. So that we thought was quite noteworthy. So yeah, we asked them a lot about their productivity tools and how they do their operations. So there's sort of 4 general points we wanted to make here. 85% of them, or 17 out of 20, said they're using QuickBooks. So that might be one area for support with these organizations is financial and QuickBooks training, or potentially other options for tools that are more suited to what they need. We didn't dig in there, so we don't know more deeply how they're using it or what their problem support areas are, but that might be something that CCC could explore. 80%, or 16 out of 20, said they use Excel to manage beneficiaries. So we asked them, how do you have a database of beneficiaries? And most of them said, well, we keep people, we have names in Excel, and that's just sort of how we manage it. So that's something we'll come back to later as well. 16 out of 20 also said that they use paper to do their data collection, which isn't to say that paper shouldn't be used. We use paper, makes a lot of sense, but it depends what you're doing. And it seems like very few of them were really aware of the Magpies or the ComCares or the Coco toolboxes and the other digital data collection tools that can be so helpful and can save time and can save money in their own beneficiary tracking, M&E, or design processes. So that's also noteworthy. And then 70% of them said that they were using Outlook to manage their email. So not a major surprise. It's a good tool, but useful to know that that's sort of the standard among most of these organizations. I believe it was 2 of them that said that they were on Gmail, and then 4 of them said that they were just using personal email. So that was quite surprising to me, and you can imagine that those are sort of smaller organizations with less to spend on IT, but certainly something to explore is what are some ways that small organizations can also have an organizational email, so that A, it's more professional, but B, it's separated from your personal account, right? I mean, there's potentially legal issues there, potentially issues of just having things cluttered together and confusion about what is the personal versus what is the organizational communication. So go to the next one, Porter. All right, we asked individuals quite a bit about their own technology use, and this is sort of more related to the typical digital insights work that we do. So everyone had a smartphone, all 48 people, and the majority of them were using, the vast majority were not the vast majority, but I guess about 60% were on Android. And maybe 6 people, I think, in total had multiple phones. There were 2 or 3 folks that had basic phones or feature phones, but for the most part, everyone's using smartphones. So not a major surprise, but useful to know. All right, and then apps, common apps. Everyone's on Facebook Messenger, so yeah, 100%, not a surprise. Almost everyone. This is a question. Well, the question was, what do you have installed? So not what are you using, not what's your favorite. We just want to know, for each of these apps, do you have that installed on your phone? We'll come back in a second to actual usage. So everyone's on Facebook Messenger. Almost everyone's using Skype, Line, dropping off, WhatsApp. Quite a few less. Viber, Telegram, not so much, and WeChat, very, very few people were using it. We also asked other tools that maybe you're using for chatting or instant messaging, and there were no other significant ones. These were really the ones that were mentioned up to 2 or 3 times. So yeah, it was actually, myself, I was quite surprised that WhatsApp is so low on the list. Everywhere else I go in the world, WhatsApp is really the #1 tool that everyone's using all the time, but not really so popular. And then WeChat, pretty low on the list. So go to the next one, report. All right, so we asked people, how many messages do you send a day in any one of these tools? So by messages we mean each time you hit enter and say something. And for me, that's a proxy for sort of how popular or how much do you rely on this tool for communication. And it's so much that it's the individual number, but it's the comparison that counts. So Facebook Messenger on average, folks were sending 15 messages a day, by far the most. Skype had 9, a decent number, but then there's a real drop-off. I mean, Line people said maybe 3 messages a day. Text messaging, out. Almost no one's using it. 2 messages a day. People said, geez, I just get a bunch of advertisements. It's just annoying. And then Telegram, WhatsApp, and Viber all had one on average across all 48 people that we interviewed. And WeChat ended up really being Nobody. Also worth noting that the folks that we interviewed said they make an average of 6 calls a day, and that they still, in an emergency situation, are more likely to use the phone and make a call before they're going to send a message to anyone in a rapid situation where they need to get an answer or they need to tell someone something. It's still a phone call. That's really the easiest and maybe most attention-grabbing way of reaching out. So, next. And then some final points on Facebook use. Gotta fix that. But yeah, what's worth noting here is the fact that everyone's reading the news, everyone's reading Friends updates, so the news feed is really pretty popular. They're participating in groups, they're finding old friends. No one's really playing games, not really what they're using Facebook for, which surprised me. In a lot of other places, people are all over Facebook games. But making new friends, searching for content, updating statuses. So people are, I mean, to me, it's not so much the comparison of sort of these top, 6 or 7. It's the fact that people are doing all these different things. They're connecting with old friends. They're reading the news. They're really using their news feed. So that's probably similar to the way that all of you use Facebook. It's very similar to the way that I use Facebook. And it just gives us the sense that Facebook is this really rich tool, this really rich engagement method that really everyone is using in a very, very active and diverse manner. So those were our general insights and the things that we pulled out based on the data that we collected. And then I think we have some final points. If you could, yeah, there you go. About recommendations and ideas, and this is admittedly probably the least developed section of this entire presentation. But really, I think what we hope is that this information is useful, as we said, as a launching off point for additional research, for more questions to be asked. About all different aspects of this. And we just have a very few quick points that we wanted to make for CCC in terms of communications, using Facebook Messenger, maybe creating a group that different members could join, and where someone is constantly pushing out useful information about operations and new tech tools and fundraising, something that will be interesting for CCC member organizations to be a part of and to be active in. Also potentially a Facebook page, not an organizational page, but a group page where anyone can comment, anyone can make a post about the need for assistance or the need for a consultant or the need for additional research or more information, that kind of thing. And then one of the questions we asked them was, what are some areas where you would like more training? So the ones that came up commonly were database management, M&E training, HR management. I mean, that really surprised me. The fact that they say we don't really have a way to manage people's calendars, where they're going to be and when. Also sort of the onboarding process, those are things that folks said they needed help with. Digital data collection, very few organizations had any idea of really how it worked. So that would be an area to look at. And then based on the research and what we found, we also thought that Google tools and fundraising would be really useful areas that CCC could potentially provide training for organizations based on what we found here. So we have some thoughts for NGOs for themselves to start doing more fundraising work. And we had a long talk about this yesterday. And you say, man, I've tried this and that, and I've tried a few different things. It seems like there's a lot of organizations that really haven't, and there are a lot of different ways to approach this. So this is something where DI in the last year or CCC could be thinking more about. Find some people, find some organizations that do this really well, and try to bring them in and see if you can work with them to create some trainings or create some methodologies for organizations in here that they can use. Really try to empower their communication staff or hire communication staff if you don't have it. And people say, well, I don't have money to do that. One of the reasons that you might have money is because you're not communicating your mission, your successes very well. That's a really, really important part of fundraising. And then finally, consider Facebook Messenger as a key tool for doing outreach, not just individually, because a lot of them are using it as an individual tool to talk to beneficiaries, but as a group outreach tool. So hey, bring your beneficiaries into, create a tree, have a leadership group among your beneficiaries, bring them into a Facebook group, a messenger group, and use that to push out messages, push out information to beneficiaries, talk about events, talk about what's happening in your community, use it as a community communication tool, and think of it in that tree form, because you can only have, I think it's around 250 maybe in a Facebook Messenger group. Should look that up. So yeah, you can't have all 10,000, but many of them, you could think of a way to sort of have a tree of communication. And on the operations side, try new tech tools for data collection. Consider a client relationship management system, like a Civi CRM or a Salesforce or some of these tools. Those are potentially actually more expensive, or at least Salesforce is, but City CRM is totally free. And that's a great tool for beneficiary management. You can track every time you communicate with an individual or organizations to really keep track of sort of who your beneficiaries are, how you're communicating with them, but also organizations that you're partnering with. So that's a great way to keep track of all of that. And then, yeah, for donors, prioritize existing tools instead of developing new things. There's so many great tools out there that are free, that are open source. And I'm talking about data collection, talking about beneficiary management. Those are good examples. And then, yeah, build on them this very, very simple, rapid, quick, inexpensive research that we've done to ask more questions. To consider doing a beneficiary-focused survey, going out to the folks that your organizations work with and talk to them, and dig into that relationship more between these organizations and their beneficiaries. And then dig more into Facebook. I mean, everyone's using Facebook, and they're using it in new and different and exciting ways. And so we have some very basic information about that, but that's one area where I think there's really a lot more room to explore how it could be used as a deeper engagement tool, possibly as a fundraising tool, and a lot of other ways. So those were the thoughts that we had. If you have time to hang out, I don't have anywhere else to be right now, so I'm happy to chat.
Entertain us.
Yeah, right. Bork, any final comments before we close it down? Anything else you want to add?
Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you.